Financial Survival Network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. Go to CarrieLutz.com and sign up for 30 free micro trainings on financial survival.
This show is brought to you by Miles Franklin. They've been selling gold and silver for 22 years, and I'm a customer because when you buy, they ship. For more information, go to milesfranklin.com or call them at 800-822-8080. 1490 WGCH. This is Carrie Lutz, just back from Hard Assets, New York. And instead of Mondays with Ranting Andy, it's Wednesday. Ranting Andy Hoffman is with us now to discuss all these things going on in the world and how the U.S. dollar is just perfect. Hey, And, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
I'm doing great. I just feel like I've got a dugout seat on the world economic collapse and everyone going crazy, running around, like chickens with their heads chopped off. And I feel like I'm the last sane person left on the planet. You ever get that feeling?
I have, and I've had it for a long time. But, the beauty of what we do is that we meet so many good people along the way. And I was just writing the other day about how I would have never imagined a few years back how many more people would join our quest. The quest has gotten more dangerous and more difficult because, the powers that be are trapped in a corner like rats, and as a result, they're fighting back with all their might. But there's so many people that understand what's going on. I just read a second ago, the first ever Japanese pension fund is investing in gold. So, you're going to see this around the world, and the next thing, you'll look up and the whole world will be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I met a bloke, as they say in England, by the name of Alistair MacLeod. And he's with the Gold Money Foundation, and James Turk just set it up, and really knowledgeable, like the kind of guy you want to be your spokesman. Good accent, extremely articulate, knowledgeable, studied all the bubbles, everything that you and I discuss, and he just presents it in such a genteel, gentlemanly fashion that it becomes beyond a sale, that no matter what you think, no matter what you've been programmed, propagandized, you just talk to this guy and it's like talking to Churchill. You just believe him. And I'm not looking at it from the standpoint of preaching to the choir or the converted. I'm looking at it, you're a person who doesn't know what's going on, has a lot of fear, sees things collapsing but can't make any sense of it. And you need to hear from a calm voice who will gently guide you through it. And this guy was amazing. I'm going to be putting up a clip of him a little later. I'll shoot it off to you because he's just the perfect front man for all of this. And, in Europe, in Great Britain, all of it is much, much worse than here at the present time, as in Greek imploding, not getting any more money, and having a bunch of crazy people fighting to run the place. And you got to wonder about the people fighting to run Greece. What is their deal, right?
Yeah, well, look, at any nation that doesn't have the world's reserve currency is in that same problem issue right now. We have the same issue, but we're going to have it last, so we can still print money a little longer than everyone else. But Greece is the focal point right now. It's because it's the weakest link. It has the least ability to control its destiny. And as you said, literally this morning they announced the ECB is starting to cut off some of the Greek banks, which is a precursor to the inevitable Greece either being expelled from or more likely seceding from the euro currency. And when they do, it's not going to be a simple event. It's going to be reneging on hundreds of billions of debt. It's going to be people across Europe and across the world questioning what debt actually means if you can renege on it, let alone those CDS, those credit default swaps, which apparently you can renege on. And it's going to cause ultimately hyperinflation and bank runs across Europe, and then it'll move up the totem pole to the bigger players like the Britons, which do print their own money, and the Japans that print their own money, and of course to us. But, just keep your eyes on that Greece thing, because they have done everything. I mean, the powers that be, have done everything they can to try to make you think Greece is not a big deal, but it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And it's going to be coming to the forefront right now.
Yeah, as you were speaking, I've studied the Depression a lot, especially the bank runs that occurred in the so-called bank holidays, which they're having bank runs right now in Greece and in Spain, probably in Italy, probably across the EU, but it's not being reported. But in the U.S., there was I think it was called the Bank of the United States, and a bank run started. They got caught short. The Federal Reserve refused to bail them out, which was their purpose. And there's a lot of reasons which we don't need to go into. But this bank run triggered thousands of others across the country and eventually caused a collapse in the money supply by about 30 or 40%, which is why there was no money. Nobody had money, the opposite of what we have now during the Depression. But by allowing Greece to collapse, it's exactly the same type of event that triggered the bank runs and the bank holidays during the Depression, and it's going to do exactly the same in England and in across the continent, because all banks exist on a slender reed of confidence, especially in these days, and the banks will be finished. And then when it starts spreading, the question is, do you print money for every single bank in Europe, or do you let the thing collapse? What do you think is going to happen there?
I think they will try to print money for every single bank in Europe, and as a result, it will collapse quicker and more spectacularly than the inevitable collapse that would happen if they did nothing. And because they know that the only tool in their arsenal right now, or it's a triple tool, it's printing money, propaganda, and market manipulation, and they will do it till the very end. Spending every ounce of their time trying to, stave off the end of the status quo.
Letting Greece go down the tubes is totally going to be their undoing, because, it's either they don't realize it, but they either all stand together or they all fall together, and they're going to fall now. And it could happen a lot quicker than anybody expects as well, It
has happened. All they've done is just pretend that it hasn't happened. They didn't bail them out. The Greek debt went up because of the bailout deal. And all those new bonds that they remember 2 months ago, the PSI, the private sector thing, we got to get 75% of them to agree with it, or otherwise we'll force it, and then we'll have a default. And they only got 69%, so it was a default, but then they said it wasn't going to be a daisy chain. It's just a couple of billion. We never heard what happened. And the fact is, those new bonds that they issued that were supposedly saving Greece, even though Greece's debt went up from that deal, are down 50% in those 2 months, and they're about to be zero. They didn't save anything, and no one believes that they've been saved. And, to think that now that France, the only country that was even supporting this with Germany, has a new president who has no interest in any of this stuff, let alone these elections last weekend in Germany, in the most populous state, where, Merkel's party just got decimated, their worst loss in 70 years. There's no support for this stuff. No one believes in this Merkel and Sarkozy or whatever, that there's any support for this stuff, let alone the fact that France is a bit worse off than all these guys combined. France has the most debt of Greece. It has the most debt of Italy. It has the second most debt of Spain. They are dead man walking right now. And, of course, they've got pretty much a communist in office who has no respect at all for economics. So it's all going to happen quick. Greece is not saved. Greece is not even close to saved. And it's going to crash and burn at their own hands. They're going to do it on purpose, and it's going to be now.
Yeah, and that communist who's the head of France, who hates the wealthy, he's got 3 houses on the Riviera. So I guess, go figure, it's the other wealthy people that he hates, not himself. So,
he'd have been better off if his plane crashed yesterday, because he could remember it as some kind of martyr. Let the next guy deal with France's collapse.
Yeah, well, who wants that legacy, Who wants to be known as the guy that let Greece collapse, that let Euro collapse, the whole thing? It's they're really going to be, Sarkozy and Merkel are really going to be condemned by history. You know, you just have to take the longer view. And speaking of longer views, the longer view on gold and silver, you know, been slammed down, you know, more of the same. They just are hitting it big time because the dollar is going up a bit.
It has nothing to do with the dollar. Nothing. And someone asked me that yesterday. I put my chart in it today. The dollar hasn't budged in frickin' 7 years. Yeah. It is the same 80 level that it was in 2005. It is not because the dollar is going up. We've had some of the biggest moves up in gold in the last few years with the dollar. The dollar index moving up. The dollar index is 65% the euro. So the fact that Europe is collapsing has nothing to do with why gold is going down. It is being serially hammered by the gold cartel in a fashion. It started last fall when gold hit its all-time high and we had global meltdown too. It started then. It's accelerated to levels that even I am stupefied and mystified to watch. That's how desperate they are. Doesn't matter to me. I have coins. That's what I hold. I don't give a shit. It matters nothing to me what price those are. For people that own paper investments, they're losing everything. This is what I say over and over again. Do not own paper investments of any kind. Do not own mining shares. Do not own GLD. Do not short GLD or mining shares. Just protect yourself with the basics of life. And when it comes to the basics of wealth, that is real, physical, precious metals.
Yeah, we're kind of a broken record here, but the other thing is that the confidence level in metals, you know, which I think is kind of irrelevant, especially at this point, but there are people that hold it and they worry about these things because, you know, they watch the headlines and they buy into it. And so much of it is propaganda. Hey, don't worry about it. Paper is going to be okay. We have everything under control. And then you have to like question your own sanity. Well, it sure doesn't look to me like you have everything under control. We got countries blowing up. We got banks blowing up. We didn't even talk about JP Morgan and that tip of the iceberg. You know that the losses are far greater than $2 billion. I mean, I heard initially a legal loss. They called it a legal loss of $4.2 billion. And it's got to be many, many times that, to the point that, you know, they're really insolvent.
Yeah, and we'll never know what's going on. JP Morgan, it doesn't even matter. This loss is nothing. They have massive losses on their book because they are not required to market what they do. They also have all kinds of illegal positions. Look at what they do in the silver. I mean, to $2 billion, $4 billion. Jim Willie, someone said $18 billion. I mean, who knows what it is? They're never going to tell us. You know, the only telling thing to me is the fact that this was actually allowed to happen. I mean, the government and JP Morgan are one and the same. Why would they let their pet be out there getting attacked when they could just give them money under the table like they've been doing for the last? No, well, some of it's under the table. They got $25 billion of TARP money. Plus, they get, you know, they get funded in their silver scheme and all this stuff. And they're given Bear Stearns, they're given, you know, WAMU and all this stuff. So, I mean, people trying to analyze what this means. The only thing that matters to me is the fact that it's out in public. And, you know, someone said to me, well, they're really just trying to show that they're, you know, we're trying to show you we're really a real bank and we have losses. And like, no, it's not that simple. Like anyone cares what JP Morgan has to say. There's something behind the scenes. Will we see it? I mean, will we ever find out what happened to MF Global? I mean, who frickin' knows? The fact is, this is one of the biggest, most insolvent corporations on earth. It's the symbol of United States government, you know, hegemony over illegality. And, you know, I don't even want to talk about JP Morgan anymore.
Yeah, well, my feeling is there's a lot more of this coming out with the other banks. So, hey, JP Morgan, we only lost $2 billion, and we'll see what the other ones really lost or maybe we won't see, but there will be losses.
We will see with the other banks because, you know, I have my screen of banks that I look at, international banks. You know, some of them are the U.S. ones and some of the other ones, but you know, back when we were having our meltdown back in the fall, I had that as my front screen, watching it every day. You know, you have Royal Bank of Scotland and Barclays and Santander, and
right.
You know, look at Credit Agricole, which is literally, I think Credit Agricole, which is the second largest retail bank in Europe, is going to be gone within, months, if not weeks. So, these guys, unlike JP Morgan or the Dow Jones Propaganda Average, which are supported by the U.S. government, cannot be supported other than just blatant bailouts. And I don't think this time around blatant bailouts are going to work.
Yeah.
And even you forget JP Morgan, look at Goldman Sachs, look at Morgan Stanley, look at Bank of America. These things are starting to plummet back down to those lows. A lot of the French, Italian, Spanish, German banks are plummeting down to those lows. This is going to be the point of no return. It's not going to be, we'll do LTRO3, we'll do more Fed swap facility. This time it's not going to work. This time banks are going to go under. And it's going to be a dangerous domino effect. People think, the U.S. will continue to be able to keep the Dow up and keep J.P. Morgan and its pets surviving. I mean, look at today with the, Warren Buffett. They announced that he bought shares of General Motors. Mm-hmm. Look at the chart of General Motors. It went public with quotes because the government still owns it. About 2 years ago at $33 a share. Twice it got to exactly 20 and rebounded right off of it, the way the Dow does, because it's obviously being supported. And just now it was plummeting down to 21. It was about to go through 20. And sure enough, then magically Buffett comes in, just like he did when Bank of America hit $5 and when General Electric and Goldman Sachs were there. This is just the government trying to support, a semblance of status quo in front of the elections and frankly, for the dollar in general. So this is not going to work this time around, no matter how hard they try. Frankly, I don't care how much, they hit gold because it's just going to increase the demand. We went on the phone. The Dow has fallen from plus 15 to plus 2. Mm-hmm. Silver has gone from minus 20 to minus 70. This is while we're on the phone.
Yeah.
That's how hard they are trying to convince the world that we're going to be back in 2008 again. And look, if we are in 2008, that's fine if you're holding physical metal. And if you're not, good, you're getting a great opportunity to get subsidized prices because we're going to have the same physical demand response that we had back then when they knocked the price down too low and we had so much demand that they closed down all the mints. It'll happen any day at this pace.
Oh, totally. The thing that just surprises me is the Europeans, they've got a precious metals culture, a heritage of it, and yet they're getting blown out of this too. They're not piling in. Wouldn't you think there'd be tremendous demand in Europe now for precious metals?
Well, for one, there is tremendous demand. There's tremendous demand everywhere. Look at China. They're talking about they increased their imports 600% this quarter, the first quarter over last quarter. This is all a paper game right now. But if you throw on top of that, I do get readers who email me from England, from Germany, and they say, believe it or not, that there's just as much lethargy and ignorance about precious metals there as here. They've been brainwashed as well, because look, this has been a couple of generations that we've had this. This is not just, this is not like, people own gold in England back, hundreds of years. It's still been 40 years since there's been any gold standard. And we have been brainwashed on a worldwide basis. So there's a lot of dumb people out there. There's also a lot of poor people out there. That's the whole point. Yeah. You can't protect yourself with precious metals, particularly gold, which costs $1,600 an ounce or whatever, if you have no money. Mm-hmm. So, but all this has to do with the big picture is this is all paper. The fact that silver fell 50 cents while we've been on the phone is nothing to do with people calling up Miles Franklin and saying, I got to get out of my coins. We don't get any buybacks. We never get any buybacks.
Yeah.
This is the government's attempt to get the media to write today, ECB stops funding Greece, therefore gold falls. In fact, the front page of Yahoo Finance this morning was gold falls into bear market as people worry that Greece will exit the euro. I focused on this morning, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world, because when the first Greece crisis happened in May of 2010, gold exploded while the markets fell. And in the second Greece crisis, which was in last fall, gold exploded to record highs while the markets fell. I can't think of anything more bullish for gold demand than Greece leaving the euro.
Absolutely. The whole thing is absurd. It's counterintuitive, and you just need to follow the money, follow the paper, and it's a clear and distinct trail that leads you to the ultimate conclusion that this is all showcraft and there's no substance or validity to it. And if you have the opportunity and you've got the cash, you got to go buy. There's really nothing else to do. It's just a matter of time till one day you wake up and you go to the ATM, you stick your card in, and it says, sorry, we're experiencing technical difficulties. And then you go to the gas station, supermarket, and they're all having technical difficulties. And then we have this holiday like they've had in so many other places, like in Argentina, like in you name it, and fill in the blank. And that's what's going to happen one day, which is why, regardless what you have, even if it's only the money in your pocket, get some silver, get some gold, right? What else is there to say?
Yeah, not just gold and silver, but prepare for what the world will look like. Not just gold and silver, but prepare for everything that you're going to see, because it is going to be beyond catastrophic. We are talking about supply shortages everywhere. We were talking about social unrest. I'm not making this stuff up. Look at what just happened in Greece. They have unemployment. They have they have been having bank runs. They've been having them for 2 years. They just voted about 10 parties in office, including Nazis on one side, the neo whatever on the other side. This is total chaos, and it's going to happen across Europe. What people think this won't happen in Spain? Are they not watching the Spanish stock market? Are they not watching the Spanish banks, the French banks? I mean, the only difference between today and September or October of last year is that the PPT is going berserk in protecting the Dow from crashing like every other market on earth, and they're attacking paper, gold and silver, with a vengeance that I haven't seen since 2008. And frankly, I think it's worse than 2008, because at least in 2008, the Dow was falling. Here they're trying to make it look like the Dow is the only asset on earth that's not exposed to all these things, which is the most insanely ridiculous assumption that anyone could possibly make.
Yep, totally. So on that note, Andy, milesfranklin.com, go to Andy's blog, and you'll hear more of this, more detailed, more coherent in some respects. No offense, but we're both a little agitated here. But Andy lays it out, and he's been laying it out, and it's going exactly according to the way you said. The only minor deviation is that they hit metal harder than we had reasonably expected. But outside of that, it's going exactly according to the script you've written out. So on that note, Ed, we'll talk to you next Monday. Be well.
Great, you too.
Take care.